You're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who, where we discuss everything about the hit BBC series Doctor Who. And today we're discussing the latest 15th Doctor story, The Story and the Engine. I'm Dom Bettinelli, and joining me today on the panel is Jimmy Akin. Hey, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
And Father Chip Hines. Hey, Father.
Hey, Dom.
Folks, be sure to get your very own Secrets of Doctor Who t-shirt or phone case or more by visiting our merchandise shop at sqpn.com/merch. And I want to encourage you to stick around to the end of the episode. We have lots of great feedback from our last episode when we discussed Lucky Day. But first, we need to talk about The Story and the Engine. And Jimmy, can you give us a recap of this episode?
This week, the 15th Doctor and Miss Belinda Chandra go to Lagos, Nigeria in 2019. The Doctor goes to a barbershop whose customers are all missing people. The shop is currently being run by a mysterious barber and his assistant Abby, and the barber demands that people tell stories as he cuts their hair, which magically regrows. They need to do this because the barbershop is a ship that's traveling. It's like the TARDIS is dimensionally transcendental. While you can enter it from the street in Lagos, if you try to leave, you'll find that you're in space or somewhere, and a giant spider is carrying the shop across a web to a distant location somewhere. The stories give the spider the energy needed to cross the web. The barber claims to be multiple gods of stories from multiple mythologies, but the Doctor laughs at him because he knew all the gods that the barber claimed to be. One of them was Anansi, who deliberately lost a bet to the Doctor to get him to marry his daughter. It turns out that the daughter is the barber's assistant, Abby, and we get a brief cameo from Jo Martin's fugitive Doctor in memory form, and she apologizes to Abby for leaving her behind. It turns out that the barber is a human who used to serve the gods of stories, but they didn't give him credit and cast him out. Now he's returning to wipe the story gods from memory. The Doctor points out that this will A, kill the gods, and B, harm humanity. So he somehow overloads the ship's engine with the energy from the numerous stories of his very long life. This forces the barber to let everyone out of the shop, and back on the web, the spider explodes. Afterwards, the warm glow of the happy ending reconciles everyone, and the barber decides to open his own shop and keep collecting stories. The end.
All right, Father Chip, what'd you think of this one?
Well, I'd like to start with something positive, I think. I think it was interesting that may have been the first ever episode of Doctor Who with an all-black cast, which is, an interesting...
Except for Belinda.
Right, people of color, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. And that's an interesting, development in the Doctor Who world. Other than that, there's a lot I didn't understand about how this operated and why it worked, why the ship worked, what the ship was. There's still lots of questions about that. I don't understand it. What is the possible reason why stories would power an engine? Is another question I have. It feels like we've slipped into more fantasy than science fiction, and that's overly clear this year. Yeah. And I'm not sure that that's something that, as a Doctor Who fan, wearing my Doctor Who shirt, I'm not sure that I think this is a positive development, at least from my point of view. I guess that's my general assessment of this.
How about you, Jimmy? What do you think of this one?
Well, I guess I have mixed feelings about it. I don't mind it being a science fairy tale. We crossed into that territory back in Stephen Moffat's time. And so, that's been a part of the show for a considerable amount of time. It's handled differently here. This feels like a different kind of fairy tale than Stephen Moffat would give us. But I have no problem with the idea of a ship that's powered by stories. If you need a scientific rationale for that, you could always say, well, it's the psychic energy that the stories produce or something like that. And it just did have things I liked in it. But I agree with Father Chip that parts of it were quite confusing. I don't think they explained stuff well enough. I like the fact that the barbershop is basically a TARDIS, but it's the same principles. It's different on the outside than it is on the inside. And where that door connects to it's different when you go in than if you try to leave. I can easily see the TARDIS. The Doctor could rejigger a few switches, and the TARDIS would do exactly the same thing. So I like that it's kind of a TARDIS. I think that the spider crawling across the Nexus web thing needed to be better explained. When the Doctor opens the door and almost gets blown out, that looks like explosive decompression, so I assume it's space, but we never see stars. And so I don't know exactly what is it, an interdimensional space, or exactly what is that?
Right.
That I thought that needed to be explained better. So there were parts of it that were confusing, but there were also parts of it, there were aspects of it I liked. I would say it was I don't think it was a genius episode, but I'd hesitate to call it just middling. I think it's a little better than middling, but I wouldn't say I've seen some really glowing reviews of this, and I don't think it glows that much. I think it's got glowy patches, but it also has patches that I think are not well executed. So I would say it's got feet of iron mixed with clay.
Yeah, I similarly struggled with what to say about it and how I felt about it. I gather what they're trying to do is the barber, not Omo, but the other guy, was a kind of story lord.
Yeah.
And that the Nexus is kind of like the time vortex, and the spider thing is kind of like a TARDIS. And but we never told that. Yeah, I guess I'm just supposed to guess that, because we've seen Dream Lords, we've seen Word Lords and Big Finish, and now we have the Story Lord. And I guess. And I like the it felt like there was the writer had some interesting ideas, but didn't get a good script out of it. And so I like the idea that black barbershops in America, at least, and I guess in Africa as well, they kind of have this cultural significance of a place of gathering, a place of storytelling. And I like that you draw that out.
I actually checked on that. And of course, here in America, it's not just black barbershops that are like that. Other barbershops are guys sit around and tell lies and stories and entertain each other and all kinds of stuff.
Andy Griffith, with Floyd's Barbershop is an example.
Yeah. But it is true that black barbershops in America have a reputation for that. But African barbershops also have that. So that was realistic. Where one thing that I'm not as sure how there's one aspect of this I'm not sure how I feel about. So the Doctor says that he tells Belinda, I've never had a body this color before, and so there are places where people perceive me differently on Earth. And so I go to this barbershop in Nigeria to hang out and feel accepted. And I'm going, well, I'm sure there are places that you would be treated differently because, racism is a thing, unfortunately. But have you been hanging with a bunch of racists in England? Really? I'm not sure how I feel about that. The reason I say that is because, I moved to California and lived there for 30 years, and I was definitely a fish out of water in California. And so I understand the appeal of going back home and being around people who are more like you. On the other hand, it's such a minor thing. And they play it up as if it's such a big deal in this episode. The Doctor, really, you got to, he makes such a big deal out of, I feel safe in this barbershop compared to elsewhere. And they show him walking around the streets of Lagos, and he's, oh, auntie and uncle and blah, 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 you know, and they do use auntie and uncle as greetings in some places.
Yep. And he speaks Yoruba.
But it's portrayed as if it's this magical thing.
Yeah.
And it just seems excessive. You know, when I moved back home to Arkansas, I wasn't walking around in this magical, oh, it's so different and better and safe. I mean, it's better, but it's
safer
and safer, you know, but it wasn't magical is my point. And they portray it as if it's a much bigger deal than I feel it should be, especially for someone who's not even human.
Right.
Right.
So
that's the point.
So there's a couple of points. This is not the first time he's had a black body.
Correct.
In fact, they show us in the episode.
Yeah, I know that was a flaw in the writing, but he doesn't. Yeah. He at least until recently has not remembered.
Yeah.
Having being the fugitive doctor.
Although in this, he does remember being the fugitive.
He does.
Doctor,
I know it's inconsistent.
It's and
then the other thing is, he's not a human. He's a Time Lord. He doesn't have to hang out in 21st century Earth in places like he could go to the future where nobody cares about race on Earth. He could go to any of the billions of other planets where nobody cares what color humans are. Do humans have a particular set of colors that they're like? Yeah, it just seems sort of very limiting.
It feels very limiting. It's like, okay, I have red hair, and most people do not have red hair. But as I've never felt, I just really need to go hang out with redheads in a redhead only barbershop.
Yeah, I get if he were a human and he was a black man in Earth, I get that the experience of being a black man is different than having red hair. Like I get that, but he's not a black man. He's a Gallifreyan Time Lord who happens to look like a black human male, and I
think the source of the difficulty is the doctor is conflict between two things. The doctor is not a human,
right?
But they're writing him as if he was a human.
Yes,
correct.
And if he was a human, I wouldn't feel the same way about this because he'd be reacting as a human. And I understand human reactions and I understand the experience of black folks and that would be completely different, but it's because he's not a human and he's being written as if he was a human. That's the source of the conflict. They need to pick how they're going to portray the doctor. And so this comes across, since they've established he's not a human, but they're treating him as if he is, it comes across as a form of messaging.
I think that's what I was kind of dancing around was it just feels like another example of, we need to convey a message about racism in this. In fact, I think it would have been more effective if the doctor had simply said, hey, I look like I'm African or of actual extraction on Earth now. So I decided to explore that and see what it was like.
Yeah,
and I found this great place in Nigeria that is a great example of that. But they had to make it, Russell T Davies and the writers had to make it. No, he feels racism and therefore wants to go. They have to always go to the negative instead of just how about a positive? Start from the positive and explore that.
Yeah, and what does it imply about all the previous doctors we've seen on screen? Were they hanging out in England because they felt comfortable with white people?
Right.
It's implied. It's implied, right?
I guess it does imply that.
I've always assumed the doctor is colorblind.
Right.
That's what I would have thought. I mean, he's an alien. What does he care? And he's done that over the years. I mean, he's met black people. He's met other people of other races and alien people, and he treats everybody the same, basically.
Yeah, right. He's even met humans that looked like a big sheet of lasagna.
Yes. There you go.
What's her name on the
Cassandra?
Cassandra, yes.
Yeah.
The other thing is I like the African cultural context, but I didn't really understand the point. The barber was mad because he wasn't getting story credit from the gods, which sounds like a complaint that a scriptwriter would have.
Yeah.
And the point, as Melanie, my wife, was saying, because she's read a lot of our African literature recently, the point of African storytelling culture, from her understanding, is that the story itself is the point, not the author. Like the idea, like it kind of goes against the African cultural context of storytelling. The story is what matters, not the person who creates the story.
It's like in the Bible, the books tend not to have named authors. It's the content of the book that's what's important, not the author of the book.
Correct.
Except for Paul, but he's special.
Paul's special.
Yeah, one of God's special children.
All right, so it also starts with this story that Omo, the barber, is telling about when he was a child, when he met the doctor. And Jimmy, you sent around the link that the author of the screenwriter actually wrote that up as a sort of prequel story. You don't need to read it in order to get anything out of the episode itself, but it's kind of a nice little tidbit, kind of when the doctor first met Omo.
And I guess we can try to put a link to that in the show notes so that other folks can find it.
Yeah, it's on the Doctor Who website, but I'll put it in the show notes. But the when the doctor showed up to put out a fire in a Nigerian village, where the forest was on fire, and the point being, the doctor always comes when he's needed. That's like this is this sort of Omo's mantra for now, since they're prisoners here. That's what he's hoping for, is the doctor will come because he's needed, and so the doctor shows up there. Yeah.
And he's effectively trapped the doctor into this situation,
right?
Which gets revealed at a certain point, and he later justifies it by saying, "I figured you could handle anything." But he's brought the doctor here, or something. I don't know how he did that, but they talk about it as if he's brought the doctor here, or at least is wanting to trap the doctor in the barbershop so his stories can power the ship, because he's got such powerful stories. And then the others, the disappeared people, they can all escape now. And the doctor senses this is a betrayal. And I thought this was a really good moment. I think they needed to set it up and explain it a little better. But once the doctor comes to the conclusion, I've been betrayed by my friend, he reacts. I mean, he's like, never talk to me again. And he gets angry, and I thought that was a good moment. I thought it was compelling. If someone betrayed me that way, I would feel the same way. It's like, I came here, I thought this was a safe place to be. I thought you were my friend, and here you are betraying me, and I don't want you in my life anymore.
Yeah, it shows. It goes back to that whole question: are they writing the doctor as a human being, or is they writing him as an alien? And I don't know. That seems like a really human emotion to have, as far as the betrayal. I mean, I think that the doctor almost would relish in the situation, or the ability to help his friend, whether he was sort of quote unquote trapped or not. That as he says, as Omo says, I thought you could handle it. And
well, in your defense, Father Chip, the fourth and fifth doctors never got particularly mad when they were betrayed by Adric, Turlo, or Chameleon. So
right.
Yeah. I mean, with that, I mean, I do get what you're saying on that, Jimmy. It's like he thought of it was a safe place, and what I was gathering from is he wanted it to be a place where he didn't have to be the doctor, and by having to be the doctor in this situation, it kind of it put him out and it made him mad, and so he kind of lashed out at Omo for it. I guess it was one of those things. This is why I feel like why I have a trouble with this episode, is because I have to kind of build all this scaffolding around the stuff in it in order to explain it, why things happen. It's just a bunch of stuff happens, and I don't understand why these things have happened. And that's what makes the episode less to me. It could have been so much better. I liked the idea, but I just feel like it's poorly written, honestly.
Well, and the three of us are not script writers for Doctor Who. Why are we, or the audience, being asked to fill in the blanks that the writers haven't given us?
Yeah.
I will compliment. I don't think I'm as negative as you two may be on the right end of this. I think there are things where it needed more clarity. I definitely agree there. But aside from the lack of clarity, I think a lot of the writing is just fine, even good. Like, I love the bit where the barber is saying, "Ooh," and I made a list of who he says he was. I was Anansi, the spider, the man spider. I was Saga, the Norse goddess. I was Bastet. I was Dionysius, the Greek god of theater. I was Loki, the god of mischief. And you get the reverse angle shot of the Doctor and Belinda, and there's this beat, and then they just start laughing.
Yeah.
And that's great. That was awesome. And the
fun.
Doctor is like, dude, I knew all those gods and you ain't them.
Right.
and that was just a wonderful moment. I loved that.
That was good. They were all tricksters of a sort. Anansi's a trickster god. Loki's a trickster god. Dionysius is, I mean,
he's a drunk.
Yeah, so kind of a trickster. I don't really know Saga so much. And I mean, and then,
she's a minor. I'm not really familiar with her.
Yeah. And Bastet, I know, is a Mesopotamian. Egyptian. Sorry. So I guess this, like, the Doctor treats them as if they were real, but I don't, that kind of threw me a bit. Like, so the gods are real? Like, are they aliens who are pretending to be like Stargate style, or
no? We're into, and even, I mean, you can explain them however you want. They're just powerful beings that are more powerful than humans, and we've had them ever since the original series of Doctor Who. I mean, that's where the fourth Doctor battled Sutekh.
Right.
Right.
And they're more powerful than Time Lords because the Doctor was terrified of Sutekh.
Right. Even the Pantheon of Discord, the Celestial Toy Maker, and that sort of stuff. And who was the game?
That was the Toy Maker.
Oh, that was the Toy Maker. Okay. Yeah. That's right. So I get it. I guess so. Yeah.
Well, now maybe you guys can explain.
Yeah, and they don't call him a god, but the toy.
I was just going to ask, it has nothing to do with the gods, but if you want to finish that thought, Jimmy, go ahead.
Well, I was just saying they don't call the Toy Maker a god in the first Doctor's time when he's introduced, but he's portrayed effectively as one, and the first Doctor's terrified of him.
Right.
And he has his own realm where he can create stuff and make it happen.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
My question in this episode was, what were the alarms? Like,
that was my next point.
The alarm? I don't know what the alarms were supposed to do other than annoy Ms. Belinda Chandra.
Yeah, so for folks who may not have seen the episode yet, Belinda initially stays behind in the TARDIS and she tells the Doctor, go to your barbershop, it'll be fine. And she's just hanging out in the TARDIS while he does that. And then when he goes in and the door closes behind him, all of a sudden, all of the roundels in the TARDIS turn red and there's this alarm sound playing. And that happens a few times, and it's clearly connected to the Doctor being in the barbershop, but they never explain it.
Every time the door opens. Yeah.
Yeah, it's visually compelling, but they don't explain it.
And not the cloister bell, which is usually the alarm bell. Yeah.
Well, I guess the cloister bell is like the TARDIS itself is under threat. It can be a different kind of alarm, but they just need a line of dialogue to explain it.
Yeah,
exactly. And I think if you look at it, I could understand the alarm going off when the Doctor went into the barber shop. They could make the argument that, the TARDIS knew he entered another dimension or something like that.
Yeah.
But why did it go off when everybody else came through the door? They weren't the Doctor.
Every time the door opened, it detected something of another universe or another dimension or something. You know what I mean? It's like when the door opens, it's detecting something inside the shop,
right?
Or something. But again, a line of dialogue would help clear that up.
One line, yeah.
Jimmy, you mentioned some of the writing you liked. I liked the reference to, I call it, he talks about the Nexus. I used to call it the World Wide Web, but the humans ruined that.
Yeah.
Which was good. And then the Doctor calls him you're a troll on the web. You hide your identity like a coward. I'm like, oh yes, internet trolls. give them what for. So those are good. I like that. We have to talk about our Mrs. Flood sighting of the week. She was the doctor interestingly tells the Belinda story about how Belinda, as a nurse, the heroic nurse, who bad doctors are bad apparently, except for him, and the heroic nurse who took care of this woman and was thanked by her because she knew the sacrifice.
Saved her life. Yeah.
Yes.
And,
right.
And as we're tracking Belinda in the hospital inside the story, we see Mrs. Flood walk by and she just waves and says, "Hi, picking up my pills."
Yeah. Interesting. It's that. So in this one, she's not active. Like in several of the recent ones, had like an active presence. She's just being remembered, which I think was interesting.
Yeah.
So there is a Catholic reference in this one. I don't know if you guys picked this up. The barber collected stories, and one of the places he collected stories over the centuries was in the Catholic confessional box, which seal of the confession, folks. Hello.
I know.
Well, he didn't say he disclosed those stories. He just picked them up.
Oh, I see. That's right. So I just thought that was an interesting place to think of where you would collect stories.
You
do collect some stories, man. Let me tell you.
I suppose, although I try to be super efficient in my confessions. I go in and
you
I
are
say,
the rarity.
I just say I did this and this and this, and for all my sins, I'm sorry. And I don't provide context because the context isn't necessary. The priest doesn't need to know the secret origin story of what you did.
Thank you.
I'm going to guess.
Say that and shout that from the rooftop.
I'm going to guess a lot of people go in with, well, I did it because X, Y, and Z. Like the excuses come out. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I try not to make excuses.
There's a justification process that goes on, and you sit there and you have to listen to the justification before you can get to the meat of the issue. And besides lengthening the confession, it really just irritates the people that are waiting to go to confession. Because
I think about those people, and when I'm one of those people and the confession is taking a long time with the person in front of me, I'm thinking about that.
Right.
On the other hand, there's a flip side to this, which is some priests feel the need to give you advice.
Yeah.
And
that is true.
And if I go in and tell the priest it's been a month since my last confession, okay, they can deduce from that I'm an active Catholic who regularly goes to confession.
Correct.
Therefore, I've probably already heard any advice you might give me about improving my spiritual state over and over and over again.
Yep.
Correct.
And especially if I go to the same priest, it's like, dude, you've told me this before.
Right.
And
right.
I mean, setting aside the fact that I'm a moral theologian,
Correct.
Yeah.
I will say, if the person has said, I haven't been to confession in 20 years, then I might have a longer discussion with somebody like that. But if you're telling me it's a month or a week or 2 weeks, I agree with you, Jimmy. I'm just like, okay, they have heard everything that I could possibly say about this. Here's your penance, and let's be part as friends,
Be absolved.
That's right.
Absolvete. So that was actually a nice diversion. So you're not going to hear that in another Doctor Who podcast.
That's
probably not.
The barber wants to destroy the gods. And the Doctor objects that the gods are the essence of humanity, that humanity needs these stories to pass on culture. Yes, I mean, this is kind of Tolkien's point, although he would have made this much differently, which is the idea that mythopoeia, the existence of legends and tales and stories, is at the heart of human culture. We tell stories to reveal truths about the world around us. And so I like that. I get that. I would have liked to have more of sort of, if you're going to say that. I mean, I suppose they did say it. I mean, if they'd gone on a long, diversion on that, it might have been boring. But I did like that at least they brought that in, that the story is at the root of human culture.
And that's true, except that I'm not sure that destroying the so-called story gods is automatically going to destroy humanity. I'm not sure that that's the deduction you can make from that.
That's the point. Like, if you destroy the story gods, does that mean the stories don't exist?
I'll let him have this one because I think this is an aspect of the plot you just have to kind of give them and go with it. That,
agreed. Yeah. I mean,
interesting.
It's something that comes up in your head though when you're analyzing and you're trying to think about, like, what does this all mean? And they've given us so many other plot holes that we have to fill in our own own thoughts. That's why I don't think this is as well written as some episodes may have been in the past or could be in the future. I after listening to you, Jimmy, talk about what you thought about the writing, I can give him middling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I can give him middling. I'm not willing to give them gold, but I think that there was a potential here, and that maybe that potential was missed.
Well, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. So I think that what this episode is, there are some things that are just bad. There are some things that are just good. And this has the seeds of a really good episode, but some poor execution.
Sure.
Yeah, I could live with that.
So what is the non-diegetic reason for the inclusion of Joe Martin as the fugitive doctor?
Because
it's such a small thing.
Well, I actually saw a video where Russell T. Davies discussed that, and he said, because she's black. She's the previous black doctor, and it felt like that something was missing if we didn't have her in this.
I guess, but then
makes no sense.
Like, then have her play a bigger role than just one line.
Well, this gets to something else I was going to mention. So she was the fugitive doctor was introduced in Fugitive of the Judoon, and since then we've seen her in a memory flashback in The Timeless Children. We've seen her in a memory flashback in Flux. We've seen her in a memory flashback in the Jodie Whittaker regeneration episode, and we've seen her in a memory flashback in The Story in the Engine. We have not seen her in person since her first appearance in Fugitive of the Judoon. Everything else has been a flashback. It's like, no, she's awesome. Bring her back.
Right.
Make her the 16th Doctor. Like, I would love that. I think we talked about
great.
That.
Doctors can revisit their faces, sure.
Yeah, we've seen it. David Tennant. Like, I think it would be interesting to have her, do. It would be, I think it would. It just feels like such a waste to bring her back all the way into this and not give her anything to do. Really, that was kind of annoying.
They did. There's also an implication here, which is that. Which is unpleasant, but they don't make a big deal out of it.
Yeah.
Right.
But okay, so when Anansi made a bet with the doctor to marry his daughter, the doctor in question was female.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, okay, thanks for that. I see what you did there. And,
yeah, exactly.
But at least they didn't make a big deal out of it.
Traditional African culture would not have been okay with that.
Would not have been approved. No barbershop would be a safe place for you in that situation.
Not at all.
Yeah. I'm not buying that one. I thought that was interesting that Bina's story, when she gets on the chair, is the story of braiding maps to freedom into hair. I don't know if that's what really happened. Like, so slaves escaped because they had maps, because of the particularities of African hair, the afro, that you could braid it so closely to the skull that you could make a map out of it.
Yeah, I didn't research that. I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, it was okay as an element.
It's at least an idea.
Yeah, as an idea, I think it's fine. I was disappointed by one thing, though. They made it, because if you don't know history, you hear the common narrative about Europeans and especially Americans enslaving black people. And you think, oh, that was the only slavery in history,
Right.
or
Right.
even that was the only slavery involving Africans in history. And it's like, no, actually, slavery existed in Africa.
Right.
Africans enslaved other Africans all the time. That's who the Europeans bought the slaves from, was other Africans who had already enslaved them. And the slavery traffic didn't just go out of Africa to the west, it went to the east, where Muslims would buy black African slaves and take them back. And so this is not a uniquely European or uniquely American thing. Africans have enslaved other Africans for thousands of years. And so I, initially was interested to see what they were going to do with this, and they end up mentioning plantations.
Right.
Yeah.
And plantations are a uniquely New World thing. So this fits with the narrative of Westerners being responsible for African slavery, and glosses over the fact that no, this is a much broader phenomenon. And so I didn't like that they tied it to New World slavery. I wouldn't mind that, because it's true, there were New World slaves, but I would like to see a balanced approach that doesn't fit into the blame the West narrative, as if the West was uniquely at fault here, when there's enough sin to go around.
Right.
For sure.
Right. That's definitely.
Yeah, and it goes back to narrative too. Like, this whole story is about narratives, right? I mean, and because it's the narratives, it's the stories that power the engine of this craft, let's call it. And so, they're sort of giving us a specific narrative about American or New World slavery. And going back to the previous comment about the two females potentially being married, another narrative of you can be whoever you want to be and do whatever you want to do. That kind of stuff is kind of buried in there, in between all of the different other narratives that they tell in this story. And it's curious that Russell T. Davies, obviously a gay man, and someone who trumpets the gay agenda and probably the whole alphabet agenda. You can see where narrative and a narrative story about how I tell it is important to him, and important to maybe the author of this story. I tell the story, you don't tell the story. It's my story.
Right. Right.
By the way, I wanted to go back to one thing that I liked with Joe Martin's cameo in this. So the fugitive doctor tells Abby, I'm sorry I had to leave you behind, but I was in the middle of another story, a story that may someday be completed. It's like, yes.
Yeah, that was good.
Hints at a future Joe Martin appearance or appearances. It's like, yeah, okay, I'm here for that story. Give it to me.
Me too.
Yeah. That was heartening. Give hope. So the story engine is a heart inside a brain,
Inside a tree.
Inside a tree brain thing. So anyway,
I don't get it.
But the doctor does take over the engine with the never-ending story. Now I'm hearing that song in my head.
Oh, don't do that.
Which will overload the engine. And that's the solution. Overloading engines seems to be a very common solution to things in Doctor Who.
Yeah, he also and they bring in Hemingway at this point. Now there is and they never actually tell. So Hemingway is famously credited with writing a 6-word short story, a piece of flash fiction.
Yes.
And they never actually tell us the story in the episode. It's called Baby Shoes. And the story goes...
The saddest story ever told, I think, is the host. Yeah.
The story goes like it's in the form of a classified ad. And it goes like this: for sale, baby shoes, never worn.
Right.
And that is a very powerful story for 6 words. being a nitpicker, and this being a show about here's context for the episode. Hemingway didn't write that story. It was not. It's known to have appeared in print in 1906 when Hemingway was 7 years old, and nobody attributed it to him until 1991, 30 years after Hemingway died. So he didn't write that, and there are even earlier versions. In 1883. There was for sale baby carriage never used, and I debate with myself whether baby shoes, it's more personal to the baby, but baby carriage is bigger and more impressive. As an item, it's bigger than shoes. And something about, we bought a baby carriage and everything, and then we lost the baby. I mean, I think baby carriage might even be more powerful than baby shoes. But I think it's dependent on what mood one is in at the time.
Right.
But the doctor's story, 6-word story, is I'm born, I die, I'm born. And thus he encapsulates his endless cycle of regenerations, and the engine picks up on that, and the power from the stories of all his regenerations is what overloads it.
That's what powers the Secrets of Doctor Who podcast. The stories.
That's right.
All right, folks. Thanks for your patience. We had a technical issue, but I want to reintroduce the point I was making, which is that Omo and the Doctor apologize to each other at the end. They reconcile. Jimmy, you had a thought on that.
Well, I think the ending is too cozy and quick for me. It's just like, as I said in the summary, in the happy, warm glow of the happy ending, everyone reconciles, and that's my way of implying on a subtextual level that this is too rushed and too pat.
Yeah.
And they even forgive the barber, and
right.
Omo decides to suddenly retire and give his barbershop to the barber, who we see at the end of the episode going into the barbershop.
Right.
And they give him a name, and he gives him his father's name. And it's like, this is all too happy. This guy was torturing you for who knows how long.
Right.
Right.
Days at least. I mean, there was and made, one guy
posters.
One guy missed his daughter's naming ceremony. Another guy missed a championship sports event. I think it was soccer, probably, or a race. He was running a race. Like they changed these people's lives for the worse. Like, so yeah, that was odd. There was one other thing. Belinda, as she was trying to find Omo's palace, barbershop, she saw a little girl.
Yep.
And the little girl was Poppy.
Captain Poppy from Space Babies.
Space Babies. What's that about? That was the beginning, the first Doctor's first story.
Don't know, but I assume it's going to pay off in the finale.
Yeah, it must be. Yeah. I mean, 15th Doctor's first story, but yeah.
And they made a point of crediting her in the credits as Poppy. So
right.
Same name and everything.
Yeah, same young actress, same name. Yeah, that was odd. The inclusion of that in not saying anything.
And they call it out at the end of the episode where Belinda says, did you see that creepy kid? And the Doctor didn't.
Creepy kid. I love that.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. I mean, that was also the first Mrs. Flood, like the first time we saw Mrs. Flood outside, apart from London 2023 or 4 or whatever it was.
We saw Susan Triad.
Oh, that's what it was. Right. The two actresses look so similar that in my mind I have trouble separating them. The Mrs. Flood actress and the Susan Triad.
And they may pay this off, but they may have an explanation for it. But why Susan? They gave us an explanation for Susan Triad. So why should Mrs. Flood be so similar? I mean, she's appearing in every episode in the same way.
Right.
Why? And they're both older female actresses. Why?
Yeah, they really better explain that. Yeah,
Man, this better be a great explanation.
There's also one other bit from the end of this episode where the barbershop customers who the barber and Abby were torturing, they now know that she's the daughter of the man spider. Anansi.
Yep.
And they prostrate themselves to her. And they say, he, meaning the doctor, I guess, rescued us, but you kept us alive. And I'm going, really?
It's about food.
But this is weird. I mean, I would be thanking the doctor here, not her. I mean, she played a subsidiary role at best here. And I guess they're honoring her because she's the daughter of a god, but it just felt wrong to me. It's like the doctor's the person you need to be thanking.
Right. Yeah, you don't thank the jailer who brought your food to the cell every day.
Yeah, even if the jailer had a face turn, towards the end.
Yeah, I mean, they don't get the lion's share of the thanks. Yeah, it was an odd. I mean, maybe there's a cultural significance or something, but they didn't tell us.
Yeah, except also Nigeria is overwhelmingly Christian and Muslim at this point. So
right. Well, then that's perhaps inconvenient truth for the writers or the directors or producers. Yeah.
Yeah. Did they make a mention of that? A Muslim teaching me something. Didn't she say something to Belinda Chandra about that towards the end? Imagine you, a Muslim, teaching me. I
think it was you, a mortal, teaching me a god something.
Mortal.
I thought she said Muslim. My mistake. Okay.
Yeah. Any other notes on this one, Father Chip?
No, I do not.
How about you, Jimmy?
Just have a note that this is kind of the spiritual successor to Dot and Bubble. It's also similar. I think one episode it's similar to is the Rings of Akin from the 11th Doctor's time, where
his first story
tells a story to a son and opens up his memories to the son. So it's the same kind of principle.
Yeah.
Also, I thought this episode is really weird. And in that way, it's like the Seventh Doctor story, Ghostlight. But I think I would prefer to watch Ghostlight to this.
Yeah.
Ghostlight is the one where the Doctor takes Ace to this house in Perryvale 100 years ago. And you've got all these really strange characters, including the embodiment of light.
Right. Is that the one where it turns out it's like a haunted house, like a amusement park haunted house? Yeah.
Well, it's not an amusement park haunted house, but it is a haunted house.
Yeah. Yeah. It was it was an odd one too, but yeah. All right. So that's the story in the engine. I did mention we do have some feedback, so let's get to that. This is, again, as I said, the Lucky Day, last episode. Our first feedback comes from Katarina on Facebook, who writes, I like your assessment of this episode and the past couple episodes. It's spot on. It feels like Russell T Davies is more interested in sending a message rather than telling a good story. I will watch Doctor Who until it dies because of the history of the show and my personal history with the show, but I miss when I enjoyed most episodes and not just a couple of the series.
Understandable.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Yeah. USMC 9355 on YouTube writes, I thought it was entertaining and I was happy that the Doctor didn't cry again. I wouldn't mind more stories about how companions adjust after they leave the TARDIS.
Right.
I don't think the Doctor cried in this one either. So That's 2 in a row.
Yep.
2 in a row.
And I've already, I was thinking about what kind of stories would be involved with companions who had left, because I can imagine some of them would have Ruby's problems on steroids, where you're so paranoid about everything that it wrecks your life. And I could imagine a story where the Doctor visits a former companion maybe one we've never seen before, so we don't ruin a beloved companion, but someone he's known before who has just gone off the deep end. And is and that could make for a very interesting story. It kind of be in a way, it'd kind of be the reverse of River Song, where we have this obviously significant character we've never met before, and it kind of goes in a dark direction.
I think, given different circumstances, it would be interesting to see Jamie readjusting, except Jamie has no memory of his time with the Doctor.
Well, he apparently got it back in season 6B.
Oh, right.
Because he's traveling with the Doctor. But I would seeing Jamie readjust, no problem for him. Jamie rolls with anything.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. Some of them had some tough times. Victoria, Tegan. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So the next one comes from Colin Rupke, 3755 on YouTube. Were I to actually travel with the Doctor and then go back to normal life, I think I would be forever paranoid that aliens and killer robots are hiding behind every corner. Yep. I think I would lack a healthy framework for how likely it is that I will actually encounter an alien, given wherever the Doctor lands, there is some alien plot with the whole world on the line. Any apparent evidence pointing me to aliens would have me calling unit. Which is what we're just saying, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of the same sort of premise as what I was thinking about. Only I would give the companion more agency and have them have had a heel turn out of concern for humanity.
Right. I mean, we did see in the specials like Ace and Tegan off on their own, doing things, and we've seen Sarah Jane in the Sarah Jane Adventures doing things. Yeah. So yeah.
That's why I think this would need to be a never before seen past companion, because you don't want, for all the ones we've seen, you don't want to, there are fans who love them, you don't want to ruin any of them. So the solution would be come up with a new character we've never seen before, but tell us it was a past companion.
Or Susan.
No, it can't be Susan.
Come on.
No. I want Susan back, but she's a Time Lord. She knows the state of the universe. She's not going to get paranoid.
Yeah, that's true.
You grab one of the Big Finish ones. That would be interesting. Charlie or somebody. So, like an Eighth Doctor companion.
Charlie's too beloved.
Yeah, but like a previously unknown Eighth Doctor companion would be kind of interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Rob on Discord writes, I'm surprised you all didn't mention in the Lucky Day episode that Think Tank is the Fourth Doctor's first villain from Robot. I just wonder if Conrad's group shows that it's underground this entire time, or if he's just reviving the name. Unless, of course, Russell T Davies has just run out of originality.
I puzzled about that. I thought about mentioning that last episode, but they didn't make anything out of the name, which is what surprised me, because I knew this name has a history with Doctor Who. So why bring it back? Russell T Davies must know the history of this.
One would hope.
But then he's an obsessive fan, so I'm sure he knows it. But they don't do anything with it. And what's his name's group doesn't even need a name. He's an influencer. He's got followers. He doesn't need an institutional name for the group he's part of.
Right.
Unless you're going to make more out of that, and they don't.
Right. In fact, it's never mentioned. It's only seen in, on clothing and stuff. So he doesn't need the name.
I thought he said we are Think Tank.
Did he? Oh, I must have missed it. Yeah. Must have missed it in the whole
now apparently
anchor over the twist.
Yeah. Now apparently he's going to come back for the finale, I guess. Yeah. So they may do something with it then.
Maybe. Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's true. Right. Well, that's our feedback. Thanks everyone for your feedback. I like the diversity of origin of the feedback. We got Facebook, YouTube, Discord. So we really do appreciate wherever we get our feedback from, and we encourage it. We'd like to take a moment now to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create The Secrets of Doctor Who, including Sam W., Julia W., Karen M., Isaac K., and Bennett G. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue The Secrets of Doctor Who and all the shows at StarQuest. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So that's it from us this time. We'd love to know what you thought of The Story in the Engine. You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com, the Secrets of Doctor Who Facebook page, send an email to doctorwho@sqpn.com, Visit the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/discord, or watch The Secrets of Doctor Who on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/StarQuestMedia, and leave a comment there after liking and subscribing, of course. And also you can watch the video on Spotify, where you can also leave feedback. So lots of places to leave us feedback. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the next episode of the 15th Doctor, the Interstellar Song Contest.
And I predict that next week, at least at the end of the episode, we may finally get a reveal on Mrs. Flood.
Ooh, interesting. Because that's the penultimate before the
anti-penultimate.
Right. Until then, Jimmy Akin, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Doctor Who.
Thanks, Don.
Chip Hines, thank you as well.
Thanks a lot, Don.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who on StarQuest. And remember, the difference between good and evil is what we do with that pain.